Hi, and welcome back to another Sister A video offering to help with week 3, adding more HTML and CSS for your website. If you remember last week, we left off, our page had all of its components, bare bones. It has the logo image, it has the 3 pages for the navigation, it has the banner image, it has a headline, excuse me, paragraph and image, then it has an image, paragraph, and or headline and paragraph, and then it has the 3rd section with just a headline and paragraph, and it has the final line with your copyright and your name. And so now we're going to take and add a little bit to that. All right, and this is the page as we left off, and we're going to take it from there. We've already, if you remember, put in images that you will use on this page and possibly on other pages, and you can add more later on, but I always add extras so that I don't have to stop and go. And even so, I have my handy dandy image folder on my desktop in case I need to download anything else. All right, so let's go to our directions. And it says that we all put in our content from last time, which we did. And it gives you, of course, a few more concepts that it would like you to look at. Most of these take you to W3 schools because they're one of the best in easy to understand concepts for just about any subject that you could want. And so make sure you touch on those before you begin your coding. Step 1 is telling you to look at the wireframe, review it, the one that was from your site plan, but they put it here, and what they've done on this one is they've taken and, like, here's where the banner image, this is the logo, and even though it has 5, please don't put 5, you just have 3 pages. It's reminding you of how the pages are set up, and it's showing you that we're going to put these items into boxes, as they call it. I just call it sections. So anyway, you can confer to that. And it's talking about using tags that are sometimes divs and sometimes semantics. Sorry about that. So how do you know which of the semantic elements you should use when you're going to add or group content? When making a simple div is the right answer? Well, we shouldn't try to use a div unless there is not a semantic to do the job. Always choose semantic first. Semantics are things that already exist, like section, like paragraph, like headline, like image, img, like navigation, nav. If it exists already, don't create a div to take its place. Now, sometimes there isn't one. That's when you use the div. Div's pretty powerful, and it can be used for just about anything. We already have on our page a semantic, which is our header, and it's combining or holding, boxing the logo, navigation, and banner. Those are all boxed into the header. So what we're going to do is we're going to now take and prepare things so that we can finish the boxing on the page here. At this point, your page isn't going to look like your wireframe, and even after today, it's not going to look like your wireframe. It's not going to be laid out today or for this week. It will be soon because we're moving at a much faster pace than the full term class. All right, so the first thing it wants us to do is it's reminding us that we made our navigation, but now we're going to add a link to it so that our navigation will be able to take us to our other pages. And the way you do that is sitting inside here, you add an A line. And A then goes to an href equals, and then you got to tell it where to go. Oops, I hit the wrong one there. Href equals, and we're going to tell it we want to go to, the home page would be the same as the name here. So it will be index.html, and you've got to put both. And close that. Now notice it's delivered a closing A, but if we put it there, it's not going to do anything for us. So we're going to move it. You've got to move it, move it. And you're going to put it after the word home, but before the closing LI. All right, so that link is now set up right. It's not going to go anywhere because we're already on the page. But once we transfer the navigation over to one of our other pages, then of course it will go there. Now on these two, we're not making the pages yet, but we're going to make a start of the link. And you don't want to actually put the word in there because otherwise it'll take us off into Never Never Land if we click on it. So instead we're going to put a number sign in between the quotes. And that way it'll stay right where it's at. The number sign says, stay here. And rather than typing it again, because that's much slower, I'm going to copy this and paste it on the next line. And then I'm going to, now notice I get an error. When you click on that or hover over that, it tells you what's missing. If you have errors, don't submit till you get rid of the errors, or try to find your errors. And if you can't find them, I'll help you find them. But I want you to try and find them. Okay, and the last one, it goes away when I put the closing A. All right, so that's all that means. That whole big part right there, that's what that means. All right, now, when we're working within our own website, and these pages are within our own website, you want it to open up in our website. You don't want it to open it into another tab. You want it to just change the page that we are on. And that's an important fact to remember. Step 3 is going to have us create some it always confuses me because they put this step within the same one. All right, before we make these, it's going to have us make an ID or a class name for each of our images. And you do it right within the image line itself. Don't put it out around it. Put it right in there. And, okay, there's an ID means it happens only once on the page. A class is one that could happen more than once on the page. In the case of the logo and the banner, you're only going to have one logo and one banner on a page, on any given page. So I'm going to give both of those an ID. I'm going to name them something very clever, like logo for the logo and banner for the banner. Sorry about the dog noise. I told him I was recording. That didn't matter. All right, so you're going to name it logo. Even though you put logo here, name the ID logo, please. Same thing with the banner. You're going to go ID equals banner. Don't forget to close the quote and put one space. Now on the two images that are inside your sections 1 and 2, you're going to give those a class name. Because on a future page, although you're only going to have one on this page, on a future page you might want to have more than one image 1. Trust me on that. So I'm going to give this a class equals img1. And same thing with this, but guess what it's going to be called? You guessed it, img2. Image 1 and image 2. You're going to keep it generic because if you want to reuse it on a page or on another page, if you give it a name that's in particular to this particular image, you can't reuse it. So we're going to give it these names that name that image not particular to this picture. All right, and so those are done. And now this next part is you're going to add some external links onto your page, and these are going to be for social media. These are going to go down on the bottom row, just below the copyright name line. So I'm going to put my cursor down here. I'm going to skip a space, and I'm going to, you're going to give it, each one of those, an image line, and you have to give them each an href line. So the first one, and you go, okay, and here's how you make it be an external page. By adding this target equals underscore blank in the href line, that will make it open in a new tab. And trust me, you don't want it to hijack your site. You want it to be able to open on another page, so they basically keep your site open. So that's why we do that. Now, we've made this so that, remember, you can copy and paste much of it, so you don't have to try and do all the typing and get these things wrong. So if you copy this line and put that one first, notice on here it's got class equals social media, Each one of them will have class equals social media. And each one of them will also have target underscore blank. The thing that will be different on each is that it will have the actual website that each of your chosen social media icons will take them to. And then the alt name will be the name of that icon. Okay, so I'm going to do Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And you can choose any of these, or you can get your own. Remember, if you use one of these, you're going to want to right-click, save the image onto your desktop in your image folder, then drag it up into your asset folder so that you can use it. All right, before I bring my pictures over, I'm going to get each one of these done. So I'm going to just copy and paste the same one 3 times. We know that this is all going to be the same on all 3. I'm going to change this word here to Twitter. And this one's going to be YouTube. And then I'm going to change the link so that it's www. Luckily, all you have to change is the middle word, twitter.com. And this one is going to be www. You leave all the other part there. You always have to have the complete link with the HTTPS on there. And so this one's just going to change to YouTube. And notice I have an error, and that is because each one of these does not have the closing A. But if I put it here, it's not going to do anything. Just like up here, if I put it right after the link, it's not going to do anything. I have to put it after the image line, because all this does so far, it doesn't put an image there. It's something that's not seen. So now I'm going to get my image line, which it will look something like this. Copy this one. And you're going to put it right up against the link line. Now don't worry, we're going to actually go get our URLs for our pictures. I'm just putting an actual line. Each one of these image lines, oh, well, they made a mistake here. That's not going to work. I'll have to fix that before you try to do it. But it's got to be image, IMG, class equals icon. So each of the images is going to have a class equaling icon. And change this to image. That would mess you guys up, so I'm glad I spotted that. And the first one, of course, is Facebook, so I leave that there. This one is Twitter. I change this name. And this one's YouTube. Then I'm going to put on the outside the closing A. Nice thing about a video is you can play it as many times as you need. And notice my errors went away. Alrighty. Now, before I finish, before I can say that I'm finished with this, I now have to go to my asset page and get each one of those URLs. These are up here. I picked these groovy neon ones. So I'm going to copy the URL. I'm going to go back to my index and paste it. You got to be real careful that you don't accidentally do the href line, that you do the src. Look for src. And then highlight in between the quotes and paste. Now I'm going back to get my Twitter. Make sure you don't have the href and you're doing it on the image line. And lastly, I'm going back to get my YouTube. SRC. SRC stands for source, by the way. Now, if I did this right, notice I didn't go back and look at it in between a lot. That's because sometimes while you're making changes, things will look wrong and you'll get nervous for nothing because you just need to finish the steps before you look at it. And if I go back and I look at my page, of course my pictures are all way big. These are each here. Now if I click on each one of those, should take me outside to a new tab and to the correct website. Facebook works. Twitter works. And YouTube works. So I did those. These are now turned into links. See, it turns to a hand. This one goes to the home page, but we're already on the home page. And these don't go anywhere because they have that number sign which keeps them from going anywhere. All right, we're now down to part 2. Part 2 is going to be doing a little bit of CSS, well, adding a few more things and then the CSS. All right, so like I said, part 2, there's some more things to check out before you move on or move forward. And the first thing they tell you is to make this link. Well, we already have that from when we set up our software, so I don't really know why they put that in the instructions, unless it was to confuse everybody. But you can double check and make sure it's there. You should have this link. And what that link does is it allows the index page or the HTML page to get all of its styling, house it over here on this page. It doesn't have any yet. We're about to put some in there. But it allows the two pages to communicate pretty seamlessly, actually. All right, so that's already done. We don't have to spend time with that. And it's telling you in this one that this is an FYI that a CSS rule is made of 3 items. It's made of a selector, and we're going to modify our nav, so that's the selector. And we're going to be using nav. It doesn't need anything before it since it is a semantic. And there are curly brackets. And then there's the value that you're going to change it to. So what it wants us to do for the nav, we're just going to go right over here onto the CSS page. I'm going to go down a few lines because I'm going to put something up above there in a minute. I like keeping my things in order. And you might notice from time to time when I grade, I rearrange a few things for you on your CSS because orderly is important. So what they want you to do is type this over here. instead of typing, what's a good idea? You bet, copy and paste. If you can copy and paste, why not? So we put that over there. I don't know why they put this so far. All right. So it's saying we're going to change the background color of the navigation, of nav, to salmon, which looks like this. That's not my color. So I'm going to turn it my color, which is a shade of blue for my page. And one of the things that is a good idea to highlight is the HTML color picker for W3 schools. And if you highlight this, it gives you the colors in the hex, in RGB, in a HSL, and even color words. You can find them here as well. And you can find all sorts of hues and shades of every color. Well, the color of blue I like is kind of like this one here. Very similar to that one. So I'm going to make that mine. Now notice they on theirs, for the salmon, they just use the color word. The reason I don't like using color words for most things is there's no shades to it. It's, you know, cut and dry salmon. There's not light salmon, dark salmon. You know, I mean, there are for some blues, but I like using that. You get a better selection. So now, oh, that's way too dark. Sorry about that. I used the wrong one. It's more like this one. And it's okay to go back and forth. Make sure that you always have a semicolon at the end of a line in the CSS, or things won't work right. All right, the next thing it tells you to do is it says, well, now let's change the color of the writing. And yeah, that's the color I like. Change the color of the writing. So it says to put inside the nav brackets, and we're not going to rewrite the nav brackets because you only have them there once, but they're saying to put it inside there with that color, and I'm just going to use white. And we're going to look at it. Oh my goodness, it did not change them white. Well, that's because we've got to go a little deeper than that. But it did change the little dots, which we're going to get rid of anyway. So what you have to do to make that one work is split the nav into nav and nav A. Because A, remember, is the link. And it's the link that we want to change. So we're going to move this color down there. Voila. All right. And I want to get rid of the underline and the dot, because I don't like those. And I hope that you will get rid of them as well. In fact, I kind of really want you to. So we're going to put text decoration. None. And that'll get rid of the underline. And then I'm also going to get rid of the dot. So in order to do that, we're going to split it one more time. My key sticks sometimes. And make it nav li, which is for the line item. And we're going to add other things to these, so it's okay to add it. And we're going to go list dash style dash type. None. And that will get rid of the dot. There we go. That looks much nicer. All right, so now we're going to move on. And lots of extra writing, much more than there needs to be. And I know sometimes I get lost in all the writing. And I'm sure some of you do as well. All right, so then this box is our next main thing that we need to do. And that is, back over on the index page, we're going to further split our boxes into sections. So we're going to start with, we already have this as a section. It's called header. But we're going to put the first section, the headline, paragraph, and image, into a box of section. So we're going to call it section because there is a semantic for that. But we're going to give it a class name. Class equals sec1. Please name it that. Now notice it generated the closing section, but that's not where we want it since we did things in a different order than it normally would have us do it. So just put it at the end of the section. And rather than type these over and over again, I'm just going to copy this and change the number. The second one is going to be sec2. And the last one is going to be sec3. All right, moving along. All right, so you can't see that we made those section names because they don't show, but we know that we did, and you will see why shortly. The next thing we're going to do, or before we move on and do this part about the headlines, is we're going to put a box around this bottom part, and we're going to call that footer. Oops, my F didn't come. Footer. All right, and footer is a semantic, so we don't need a div for that. And we're going to close it. Now, all of the sections are kind of boxed off. All right, now it wants us to go back over to our style page. It wants us to make all of our headlines, whatever color we chose to do so on our site plan. So I'm going to my style page, and I'm going to put my headlines up here. And it wants you to do all of them at one time. You might have some things that you do a little bit differently, but we're going to put them all up here together. And you can change one or two somewhere else. All right, and always after a comma, put one space, always. And one space always in front of a curly bracket. And make sure you have your semicolon at the end. Now I'm going to give them, right now they gave them that color, which is this blue. And that's not super far off from what I do for mine. I'm going to give it the same blue, though, that I chose for my navigation. And, oh. right? And so now they're the way that I want them for mine. And it's got a few FYI facts about putting a space after a comma, those things that I was just talking about. And next, it's going to, we're going to take and change the color on the background for section 2 only. Section 2 has to have a background color that's different from the colors around it. You're going to be graded on that. You don't put a color that's different. White is not a color, unless your page is black and you make it a white background for section 2. So what you're going to do here in this, or in the HTML part, no, strike that, reverse it. Here in this, you're going to, we named it a class dot sec2. And I'm going to make it the same blue background color that my nav is. This is actually the way I set my page up. And you'll put, of course, your color. Now notice when I do that, I can no longer see my headline because my headlines are all this color. And that's what it's saying on this second part here, is you're going to go back to your, what did I do wrong here? Oh, it doesn't have a closing curly bracket. There we go. I don't have my lights on in the room. All right, so on the index page, before we can do that, we have to come back over here, and only to section 2, you're going to give the headline here a class name. We're going to call it class H for headline, spec for special. Just using it in this one only, at least for this page. We're going to do the same thing for the paragraph for this section only. It's going to be P spec. And I'm going to give section 2, I like black on top of the blue, and I like white on top of the blue. So I've already got black for that part because the default paragraph color is black. So if that's what you want, you don't have to declare it. Sorry about that. So you don't have to declare it. That was my persistent best friend in California, and I haven't talked to her for a while, so I'll call her after I'm finished. All right, so now in order to do this, I've now made those, so I can go back over to my CSS page, and I can go hspec dot hspec, and I can give that a color of black. Now, I just finished saying you don't have to do that. However, since we named all the other headlines blue, on this one I do have to do that. So now it should have turned black just for section 2. The others stayed the way I told them to be. All right, moving forward. Now it's telling us that we're going to give our entire page a size. And in order to do that, we're going to create another sectioning off box, if you would, and it's going to go immediately after the opening body. And this one is going to be a div. We're going to give it an ID, and it's going to be called content. And I'm going to get rid of that. If I left that there, nothing at all would be fixed. And the finishing one goes down here right before the closing body. Now, you won't see any difference yet, but what it tells you then to do is go back to the style page, and this is the reason I left space at the top here. This is an ID, so I give it a number sign, and it's content. And we're going to give it a width of 960 pixels. You must say pixels, PX. It also tells you that well, it's going to give you a width. Let me open this up so you can see what I'm talking about. I have the page set really, really wide. It gives you a width, but it's all smooshed over here on the left side. We want it to be kind of in the middle. So what we're going to do now is give it a margin, so that it's a margin of the start, which is 0, and have it be auto. Now when you look, you've got a space of white all the way around. All right, so and that helps center the page, as I just said. So that's all through 11. It says to make section 3 have a text align, make the text all centered in that. So that whatever text you have in will be centered. And notice the headlines are all squished up on the left. I'm going to do the same thing in the headlines. And I'm also going to give it a little bit of padding on the edge of 10 pixels. So that it kind of gives it a little bit of space. I'm going to do the same thing with the paragraph. Remember, paragraph's one of those semantic things. So you don't need a dot or a number sign. And I'm going to give that one no text align centered, but I'm going to give it padding of 10 pixels so that it's not right on the edge. Hugging the edge is hard to read. And we're almost finished. Now the last thing we're going to do is give our images a quick sizing, and then that'll be the end for this lesson. So I'm going to size all my images. Give me some more space. And I'm going to say, first of all, my logo. It'll need a number sign, logo. And I'm going to give that one a width of 200 pixels. I'm going to give my banner, which is also an ID, so it needs a number sign. And I'm going to give it a width of 100%. So it's going to be 100% of 960. So you just have to say 100%. That one's easy. Then I'm going to go dot image 1, comma, dot image 2. You can combine them, and it's always a good idea to do so. But notice you put a space in here between them. And I'm going to give this a width of, for each of them, of 425. Because we want to keep them a certain size, since we're going to be splitting everything left and right and have like 2 main columns. Please don't play around with that until we get to that lesson. We're getting there, look, folks. Nice and clean with those. And now, only thing I haven't sized are these icons down here. And I would do that. 2 things I'm going to do with that. First, I'm going to go social media. And you have to do that to the social media. And I'm going to give the social media a little padding, so they have a little tiny bit of space between them, of 10 pics. You could do more if you want. And the last thing I'm going to do is the icons. I think it's not an S. I'm pretty sure it's just icon. Because they're all called icon. And I'm going to give those a width of 75 pixels. They're going to be pretty small. And I'm going to give them a height of 75 pixels. Because I want to keep them after a colon, always do a 1 space after a colon to keep it nice and neat. All right. Now I go down, see that, fix those up. Everything should still be off to the left, but we're getting much closer to being finished. And that's it for this lesson. I hope that these step-by-steps are helping you a bit. Make sure you check in the grading items to see what you'll be graded on, and make sure you've accomplished all of those. And before you share, and always read this part about turning in the share link with me, the edit link, so that I have access. And if you haven't already sent me yours, please do so. You're going to send that to me, and I'm compiling a website so that everybody can look at each other's websites, and you'll have access to that in week 2, and you can watch each other's websites build. And make sure that you don't have any red, so that there's no errors on either page before you upload it to me. And that's it. I'm sorry this is a little bit of a long one. If you don't need these videos, you don't have to spend your time. If you can read the information and get it from that. But if you want the extra help, it's here for you. See you on the next video.